There's a certain online debate that sparked a lot of different opinions right now. Which is better, serialized cartoons or episodic cartoons? And to be honest, I can't really recall asking myself this question before this was brought about. As of late, a lot of story-driven cartoons have dominated the discussion throughout social media sites in the admittedly polarizing animation community, while a lot of episodic shows seem to garner a lot less attention and praise. Or that's at least what the majority say. When you look up some of the most popular animation review channels on YouTube talking about recent cartoons, they're likely going to be talking about the story-driven ones. Does this mean they dislike episodic shows? Probably not. In fact, a lot of them still talk about episodic series too. But this leads some people to believe that any animated show isn't worth their time if it doesn't have a continuing storyline, which I think is a pretty unfair expectation to have for every show out there. Some of the most popular TV shows of all time are series that a majority of the time have episodes that can be enjoyed without much knowledge of the rest of the show. Shows like The Office, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and Arrested Development are shows that can be considered episodic, with a story-driven narrative snuck in for those invested enough to watch those shows the whole way through. The same could be said for cartoons like Regular Show, Gumball, and even recent shows like The Ghost and Molly McGee. These are examples of shows that can be considered quote-unquote episodic that integrate overarching storylines. They're just shows that can be enjoyed anonymously. Now before we go in, I should clarify the difference between what a serialized and story-driven show is, and how it's different from episodic shows for those unfamiliar with either definition. Even though I kind of assume you have an understanding of what either mean, because you did click on this video after all. The definition of story-driven shows is pretty self-explanatory. It's any series that focuses on an ongoing narrative, where episodes most of the time are best watched with knowledge of the show's previous episodes. And an episodic show is, well, the opposite of that. It's any show that can be enjoyed without context. A lot of people say that any episodic show is just a dumb comedy if it doesn't have a story-driven narrative, which is not true at all. Most of the story-driven shows that everyone is talking about now have plenty of humor in them. Like, have you guys even watched Amphibia? Now that's a funny show.
I just don't know what to do. Should I quit my office job to pursue my passion of stand-up comedy? Lord, send me a sign! Hey, have you guys heard the one about the lady who probably just made a really bad decision?
There's another consensus going around saying that a lot of TV networks are just sidelining any ambitious and serialized cartoons in favor of more comedies. And yeah, they're probably right about that. But what not enough people are doing is looking at the bigger picture and asking why. Some people are probably just thinking, well, these TV channels just think all kids like are pee-pee poo-poo humor. And that's not the case necessarily. It's common knowledge at this point that cable is dying, and kids aren't watching network TV anymore. And for children who still do, they have a harder time catching up on story-driven shows on cable as opposed to watching any show that regularly has standalone episodes. Rebecca Rose talked about this in her video on the Disney brand, so I won't lament on this for too long, but any series that has a direct ongoing storyline will be much harder to watch on TV because of the wider schedule. When I was a kid and I watched reruns of Avatar: The Last Airbender on the Nicktoons channel, I had a hard time watching episodes in order because a lot of times they didn't really air them canonically. They kinda just broadcast random episodes at a certain time every day. There was no such thing as streaming services back then, besides Netflix, which was only in its infancy at the time. So the only way you could watch the whole show in order was to buy each individual season on DVD. But kids don't have the money to buy that kind of stuff, so if you wanted to watch it for free, you could watch some episodes on demand, but they didn't have every episode, so you had to watch very select ones. It wasn't until the series hit Netflix in 2020 when the show blew up in popularity, because it was on a streaming service that everyone has. And now everyone has watched Avatar: The Last Airbender and loves it. Well, except my two best friends who hate it. Right now, streaming is where it's at. It's everyone's way of watching the latest serialized cartoon or anime trending on the internet.
No one watches Crystal Balls anymore. It's all about streaming.
That's why they moved Infinity Train to HBO Max after its first 2 seasons. Cartoon Network barely aired the show at all because it wasn't a series that succeeded in reruns. You think any 20-year-old Infinity Train fan would have tried to bail their job early to watch the new episode on TV, when they can just watch it on their phone anytime? Pfft, nah fam. Same goes for The Owl House, which did not reach a wider audience until the first season hit Disney Plus in the fall of 2020. The creator Dana Terrace herself said TV ratings don't matter anymore because everyone is watching it on Disney Plus anyway. Now going back to the discussion from earlier, I think it's fair to say that a show being episodic or serialized doesn't determine a show's quality. There's episodic shows that are absolutely golden, and some serialized cartoons that are absolute dog shit. I've seen a lot of people taking a giant crap all over Disney Channel's recent comedies, like Big City Greens and the Ghost and Molly McGee, by saying, one of them just looks like a low-rent knockoff of The Simpsons, because the characters are yellow, and the Ghost and Molly McGee is just a shitty comedy, LMAO. To be fair, I haven't watched a whole lot of Big City Greens, but from what I've seen, it's a very cute and charming series. And as for the Ghost and Molly McGee, I've seen every episode so far, and my golly, this is such a funny and adorable show, y'all just hate fun. If you've been keeping up with both Amphibia and the Owl House, you're probably aware of all the depressing twists occurring in both series as of late. There's nothing wrong with just funny and relaxing entertainment that doesn't have to be heavy-handed and dark all the time. Not saying I dislike those types of shows. In fact, I adore the Owl House and Amphibia. I'm all for them, but I think something like The Ghost and Molly McGee, or even Craig of the Creek doesn't hurt having around as standalone entertainment. So which do I prefer between episodic and story-driven shows? Neither. They're both good on their own merits and shouldn't determine a show's quality. So now you're probably asking yourself, hey Leezy, what even was the point of this video if you weren't going to pick a side? Well, my friend, that was the point all along. Both are equally good.